Mumbai, we have Mr. Sandeep Singh, who's joining us. He's the resident editor of the Indian Express in Mumbai, and he's someone who tracks the markets and the financial sector very closely. Well, Hindenburg, the US-based short seller, has come out with another report. The last 2-3 days have been quite news-heavy, and something that started last year in January with Hindenburg coming out with a report against the Adani Group, accusing them of round tripping money through offshore funds. Now, in its latest report, Hindenburg has tried to put in the dock the chairperson of SEBI, Madhabi Buch. Let's go straight to Sandeep sir in Bombay and try to get a sense of what is it that Hindenburg has said in its latest report. What has SEBI and Madhabi Buch and her husband, how have they responded to it, and where do we stand in this entire that has sort of erupted again after 2023. Sandeep sir, can you just sort of break it down for us? What has been happening? What does the latest report say? And what do we know about how this entire saga is sort of now unfolding and coming to light?
Yeah, thanks, Ukal. The revelations that are there in the Hindenburg report, there are a bit of fresh revelations, and it definitely raises questions on issues of conflict of interest for the SEBI chairperson. It highlights the point that she was an investor in a fund where Mr. Vinod Adani, the brother of Mr. Gautam Adani, was also an investor, a large investor in that fund. And the structure of that fund is also same, basically, which SEBI was probing. While the probe started in October 2020 into Adani companies, looking at the FPI investments, the period of investigation began at least 2016-17. Started since took note of beginning 2016-17 at least. And in that period itself, she was holding an investment in that fund. Even when she was the whole-time member, she was appointed the whole-time member in 2017. She and her husband, they were holding the investment, and that which is what the Hindenburg highlighted. That there are issues that maybe she needed to come clean on. So that is there, and also it raised issues on her husband's appointment at Blackstone, which obviously is a big REITs player, and also two REITs are listed in India, and she was at the helm of affairs as the whole-time member and later as a chairperson at SEBI. So these are some of the key ones that are there that have kicked up the storm around the regulator. Yeah.
So, in their defense, in the statement that they had come out with, both Mrs. and Mr. Buch, they said that all recusals were in place before and all disclosures were in place as per SEBI norms before she had joined even as a whole-time director. In the light of that defense and the story that you had just done about this particular specific fund, IBE plus Fund 1, is there any sort of contradiction there in what she had said in her statement and what we have found through our investigation?
See, as far as the disclosures and recusals go, she has said that all disclosures were made. Maybe it was made to the board. But we have to also keep in mind that there was a SEBI, there was a Supreme Court instituted expert committee investigation that was there, and we are not sure if when SEBI was probing the Adani FPI issue, uh, whether she had recused herself from the probe process. That is one specific thing that is there. So that clarity is not there, at least, and which is important because when SEBI was probing, the period of investment, basically, the period of FPI investments into Adani Group, it interjects with her own investments in that fund, which is in question. So that is one key aspect in all this, whether she had totally sidestepped, and whether she had informed the Supreme Court and the expert committee about her. I mean, as Hindenburg has alleged, that conflict of interest, if that disclosure was made to the Supreme Court and to the expert committee. So that is one key aspect here. Yeah.
Very sir, coming to you, from a broad perspective, from a corporate governance perspective, as well as matter of probity. Uh, what kind of questions do these revelations raise, or is it that probably too much is being made out of something that's not maybe too significant? What's your reading from your observations over the last few days?
Yeah, just to add to what Sandeep had said, one thing which I see very clearly is that which the Supreme Court appointed, expert committee, which had 6 members, including K.V. Kamath and Nandan Nilekani and Somasekhar Sundaresan and O.P. Bhatt. Some of these big people of high reputation. Uh, what it said was this: that SEBI has been investigating this issue since October 2020. And SEBI Chairperson Madhabi Buch has been in SEBI since 2017. She became the chairperson in 2022. So, as Sandeep pointed out, whatever has happened, whatever we are talking about, it is coterminous. The probe into Adani, uh, allegations which Hindenburg made of, recent stock market manipulation as well as accounting fraud by the Adani Group, which Adani Group has consistently maintained that these are all baseless. So these were coterminous, SEBI's probe and her tenure in SEBI. So what was SEBI actually probing? SEBI was probing violation of securities laws, which mandate that 25% holding in listed companies should be held by public shareholders, right? So amongst these many public shareholders, there were 13 overseas entities, 12 FPIs and one more overseas entities, which suspects or allegations are that the promoters of Adani Group are linked with some of these entities. Then essentially what it means that is that the promoter or public shareholding is less than 25, could be less than 25%, hence in contravention of securities laws. So this is what SEBI is probing. Right. Admittedly, SEBI says that they have not been able to get a handle on this probe. It is very difficult. Some of these all of these entities are in offshore locations, Bermuda, Mauritius, etc., etc. Getting information is very difficult. In all this, in one of the structures of one of these 13 entities comes Madhuri Puri Buck and Dhaval Buck's investments. Right. And the entity in which they invest, another firm has also invested in this, which is managed by Vinod Adani. So that is where the whole connection, but the two kind of two people together. Now, this is for anybody with, if all these revelations are true, and Madhabi Puri Buch hasn't specifically denied in her statements that these investments were not made. She doesn't say that. She says in her statements that these investments have been disclosed. But if these are true, then there is a conflict of interest issue. conflict of interest can arise. In many cases, it does arise, but these are always read into the appointments of the regulators. So, say for instance, she says about that, when her husband Dhaval Book was appointed as senior advisor in Blackstone, she says that it was read into her appointment that she would recuse herself, right? And the SEBI statement also says that she recused herself, and she also says she recused herself. But it is not very clear. But the granular details of the investment that she and her husband made in this particular offshore Mauritius-based offshore fund, whether it was disclosed that Adani had also invested in this fund, Vinod Adani, through another entity, and hence raises the conflict of interest. So, when you are at a very high regulatory position, it calls for making very clear such disclosures. Right. So these disclosures she had ample opportunity to make. She probably could have made it to the SEBI board. She could have made it. See, these are also required to be made in public because now there are issues about people having invested in Adani stocks, people having lost. All this case that was going on in Supreme Court. She had an opportunity to tell this to the Supreme Court. She had an opportunity to tell this to the expert committee appointed by the Supreme Court. So whether these disclosures were made and at what point were they made? So these are the questions of conflict of interest that arise from this.
But what should be the expectation that investors, public at large, and journalists like us should have now from SEBI? Should SEBI now proactively come out and make public the disclosures that had been made by the SEBI chairperson, or is it now?
So always in such cases, the first step is disclosures and complete disclosures and voluntary disclosures. Also, whether first is this disclosure, and second whether she had recused herself from that, from deciding on or from investigations related to these 13 overseas entities. So whether she had recused herself, because if you look at it, the Supreme Court also in its June when it kind of dismissed an appeal. The plea was that let there be a court monitored probe. Let the probe be handed over to CBI. But then the Supreme Court said it dismissed this plea and it said that there is high confidence in SEBI as the regulator, and let it probe. So had Supreme Court been completely aware of all that Hindenburg raises questions on today, would it have taken the same call? Would it have said that let SEBI go ahead and do it? Or would it have said that, SEBI chairperson could probably recuse herself from Adani related investigations? So these are questions that, are coming up. And, of course, as you said, first is to make those disclosures.
Sandeep sir, if we can come back to you on this, what's the chat?
Yeah, Sukal.
Yes, sir.
I have a question for Vedi sir. Sir, I mean you've known several SEBI chairpersons, and so has such an episode happened in the past where a chairperson had invested and had made investments, became chairperson? What did he do in terms of propriety? I mean, just as a disclosure and all that, and also, I mean, how tough do you see that if the chairperson, the chair of the regulator, has to recuse? I mean, is that an ideal scenario to have to be in such a position? Yeah, that the chair itself has to recuse from an important probe.
Yeah. So I think, if there is a personal conflict of interest, Sandeep, I think it is first to disclose that and then to recuse yourself. I don't see any other way in this. I'm in my, say, reporting about regulatory affairs, I remember one such instance, but it was not about, say, investments made. It was about a particular issue when CB Bhave was the chairperson of SEBI. Now, at that point of time, before becoming the chairperson of SEBI, CB Bhave was this managing director of NSDL, National Securities Depositories. So you would know that. So in NSDL, there was a particular probe which was going on by SEBI about a depository participant. I think it was Jaya Bank, if I'm not wrong, having had many customers on which proper due diligence was not done. And since it was a DP under NSDL, so NSDL's oversight mechanism was seen as lacking in in its rigor, etc. So this investigation was going on by SEBI. But when CB Bhave was to be appointed, so this question was CB Bhave had put it to the government, saying that I am the NSDL CEO today, and a case is going on. So there is a ab initio there is a problem with my appointment. So how do we resolve this? So it seems from what I'm told, in his appointment, it was kind of part of his appointment that whenever this decision is taken by the board of SEBI on NSDL investigation by SEBI, the chairperson would recuse himself. And I believe when the decision came before the SEBI board, actually the government nominee on the board read it out that the chairman has to recuse himself. No, the chairman had to step out. There were the whole time directors in SEBI, three or four of them. They took a decision on NSD, and there was this recusal. So recusals are not very often made public, like in the case of Supreme Court. We get to hear about it. Judges have recused themselves. They are the high, even in Supreme Court we have seen judges recusing themselves from certain cases. So recusal is the right step. So I wouldn't say that and it is very difficult to argue sitting here saying that these situations may not arise completely. In NSDL's case, it was not against Bhave per se; it was against NSDL. But then he recused himself since he represented NSDL at that point of time.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah, Sukal, you had a question, yeah.
Yeah. So Sandeep sir, I just wanted to understand, after this, like all of this unfolded over the weekend. Today was the first trading day. In your interactions with, market participants, how are they viewing this? Because SEBI is now not just any institution. SEBI is an institution which now touches the lives of a lot of Indians. Anybody who's invested into the stock markets directly or via mutual funds. SEBI is kind of that umbrella organization, that regulator that everybody looks up
Yeah.
to in terms of protecting investor interest. Now, when something like this sort of comes up, uh, we have to say whether what Hindenburg is saying is correct or not, but at least it sort of raises questions that it creates some sort of a controversy. Do you feel that, to some extent, the way SEBI has so far dealt with the situation, has it sort of dented its reputation, or is it something that we'll only get to know in the days to come?
I think it will take some time. The initial reaction that I got, many people have been giving benefit of doubt because nobody knows that whether she had recused or not. That only SEBI board knows, and the expert committee and the Supreme Court would know. As of now, it is not in public domain, so people are giving benefit of doubt, and they say she is very upright. She is a hard taskmaster. She is very good at her work. I mean, a lot of praises for her that people have who interact with her and who have to, as stakeholders, they have to meet her for operational things and all that to a regulator. I think that is all there. So as of now, a lot of people are giving the benefit of doubt till things become clear from her end, and I think at least uh, from her end also, she responded the same night, few hours, I think 3 to 4 hours after Hindenburg's allegations came to the fore. So her personal statement came out. Then the next day, again within 24 hours, another statement was made. So there have been some things that she tried to clarify, which I think, and then SEBI also clarified at their end as well at an institutional level. So to some extent they have done their bit in terms of bringing certain clarifications to the fore. However, there are still some questions in people's mind, especially on the aspect that when SEBI was probing, was she part of the probe? Because at that time, if she was at the helm of affairs and she had not recused herself, I mean, it meant her probing a time period where she herself was an investor in one of the funds linked to the Adani Group. So, in terms of investments and structure of the fund, so that is one question that some have, but broadly, I would say people as of now are giving benefit of doubt. Yeah.
That is one question which is sort of a very natural question now is what lies ahead for the SEBI chairperson? Uh, what is it that you foresee happening? Will she be able to ride the storm, or is it going to sort of be a blow to her otherwise stellar career so far?
See, I think from what we know of Madhabi Buch, she's been a professional, and she has had a reputation of being a taskmaster, of getting things done, of pushing the envelope within SEBI. Uh, they're taking many things in terms of in market manipulation or in trying to clamp down FNOs now. So she's really trying to be a step ahead of manipulators in the market. And from what we know so far, whatever is in public domain, is the SEBI statement. The SEBI statement is very clear about where it stands. It clearly stands with the SEBI chairperson as of now. It says that all relevant disclosures were made, recusals were undertaken, etc. And SEBI board, mind you, has two very senior secretary level government of India officers, the Department of Economic Affairs Secretary and the Corporate Affairs Secretary, and it also has a RBI nominee. So I would imagine that the government is on board when SEBI makes such a press statement. So, and it is also a fact that when you are getting a person from the private sector,
Right.
the person would have a past, the person would have investments, and she has had a stellar career, as you said. She's been at the helm of ICI Securities. She's one of the half a dozen, 7, 8 women in ICICI Bank who rose to great positions. She's a Stevens graduate. She's from IIM Ahmedabad. So she has had a very stellar career, and her market reputation has always been as a very very good professional. It is likely that she would have had made investments. Her husband is also a person of high profile, probably a HNI, and together they had enough money to invest in wherever they wanted to invest in. But these are not mutual funds. These are probably portfolio management schemes, and they would know a little more about it. They have their own portfolio managers, and probably HNIs are also, in many cases, from what I gather from people in the business, is there is an exchange of information between the portfolio manager and the end investor. So it is about disclosures. It is not about say corruption, so
Right.
to say, right? No, so it is not about corruption. It is about disclosures. It is about holding yourself to the highest standards of governance in a regulatory body, and recusing yourself when you think that there may be a needle of suspicion or at a finger pointed at you. So whether it is taking those things into account, it is your the the balancing of what I'd say autonomy of an institution and accountability of an institution. These two need to be balanced. So, is she is the balance kind of tilting more in favor of autonomy and less in favor of accountability? Those are the questions larger questions that it raises. But I would imagine it is the prerogative to do anything about Madhabi Buch, who's got another say uh, uh, till March, I think, her tenure. So, no, she may get an extension, she may not get an extension, whatever. But she has a 3-year term. So, it is completely the government's prerogative. And from what so far information we have, it doesn't look that the government is taking it very, in a manner which might
Yeah.
jeopardize.
And a related question on that, like you just mentioned that, if you're hiring people from the private sector, such high profile people who've had long and distinguished careers, they're bound to have, they would have investments, they would have assets. Um, does it sort of it impacting the this drive that the government had for has been having for some time to get reputed professionals from the private sector to head regulatory bodies to head other institutions of importance within financial sector or within other areas of government. Does this controversy, or do you see that impacting that thought or the way the government approached this question of getting more professionals from the private sector?
See, I think, all, it might, politically it might, because, there are political parties which are raising a lot of questions. But, mind it, it would be very unfortunate for political parties to say that, let's not get anybody from the private sector, because there is a talent pool in the private sector. Uh, and adequate checks and balances. It is for the government to ensure that there are adequate checks and balances, disclosures being made by the person who wants to join the government, because there are many people who want to come and join the government and probably serve the nation. So it would be unfortunate if it turns into that, but I definitely see that politically there will be huge resistance.
Because there's already a lot of political noise around
Yeah,
this.
yeah.
Sandeep, sir, just one last question to you. This probe around Adani, this alleged round tripping of money through offshore entities. It's been going on for some time now. First time Hindenburg came out with a report on Adani's was January 2023. Uh, you've also done investigative stories on how this has been unfolding. There is a at least sympathizers of the Adani Group, they sort of tend to say that this is more of a hit job. This is something that is baseless, but it's been done to malign a reputed Indian conglomerate. It's been done to malign India's reputation per se. Uh, from a market's perspective, do you is it something that investors are buying into now? That argument because of these consecutive reports by Hindenburg.
See, when it comes to, the reputation of the Adani Group, I think one thing is very clear. The investors, if we talk people to in the mutual fund industry or the brokerage houses, they they think that Adani's execute the projects really well when it comes to business, yeah? The corporate governance aside. So that and the example that is often told is about the Mundra port and other ports that they execute. I mean, in the toughest of the things that they will execute the project. So that reputation goes with them. As far as the corporate governance thing is there, I mean, unless because since the investigations involved all these offshore locations, and SEBI also, in the expert committee report, there was this thing that it hit a wall. Basically, these destinations, they don't provide the who's the end beneficial owner of the fund. So unless that clarity is come, I mean, it's like shooting in the dark, and it's very tough to pinpoint. Also on corporate governance, it won't be fair to make a loose statement unless something is there at the forefront, something we really are sure about. Yeah. So yes, suspicion was there, and which was mentioned in the expert committee report. We have also looked into a lot of these FPIs closely, how they have been investing, and how while mutual funds don't hold any investments. I mean, that also makes a statement that there are hardly any mutual fund investments in Adani Group. So some fund managers say that it doesn't. The books don't pass the test. I mean, the processes that they have laid down for investments, it doesn't pass the test. So they, even if they want to invest, a fund manager wants to invest, the process that the fund house has, it doesn't qualify. So they can't invest. So there are certain things there. I mean, the mutual funds hold very little and that would be only limited fund houses. So despite one of the largest groups in the country, corporate houses, I mean, mutual fund industry has very little stake in the group. So I mean, it does make a statement, but on corporate governance, I think it will be very. It won't be right to make a comment on the group unless something things are very clear. And SEBI has been investigating. They haven't said anything as of now. We'll wait for the investigators to tell us where it stands before we can say something about it. Yeah.
All right, so thank you so much. On that note, we will have to close the session now. I hope that our viewers got a lot of insights from both Sandeep sir and Vedi sir. Thank you so much, Sandeep sir. Thank you so much, Vedi sir, for joining us.
Thank you, Super.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks.
सर, हिंडनबर्ग रिपोर्ट में काफी रिवलेशंस हुए हैं। कांग्रेस पार्टी डिमांड करे जेपीसी प्रोब का, लेकिन बीजेपी अटैक करते हुए
थी और अब लगातार नए खुलासे हो रहे हैं। ये तथ्यों के आधार पर अगर निष्पक्ष जांच नहीं होगी और वो लोग अगर संदिग्ध हैं और शक के घेरे में हैं जो खुद जांच करते हैं या जो कानून की पालना इंश्योर करते हैं, तो फिर सच्चाई के सामने आएगी। और कांग्रेस पार्टी की जो डिमांड है बिल्कुल जस्टिफाइबल है और जेपीसी के अलावा और कोई तरीका नहीं है कि इसकी तह तक पहुंचा जाए, क्योंकि बड़े गंभीर आरोप लगे हैं। और मैं समझता हूं कि भविष्य में अर्थव्यवस्था के अंदर, निवेशकों के अंदर जो हम लोगों को कॉन्फिडेंस पैदा करना चाहिए वो तभी हो पाएगा जब सच्चाई सामने आएगी। और उसका तरीका, सही तरीका ये होगा, एक जॉइंट पार्लियामेंट्री कमेटी बनेगी, तथ्यों पर अपना तहकीकात करेगी और सच्चाई सामने आएगी। मुझे लगता नहीं कि सरकार इसमें बैकफुट पे क्यों है। अगर हम जांच की मांग करते हैं तो उससे कतराना नहीं चाहिए सरकार को।
हिंडनबर्ग की जो रिपोर्ट अभी आई है, ये रिपोर्ट जो तथ्य को सामने रखे हैं, जो डिटेल्स को सामने रखे हैं, ये बहुत ही जबरदस्त एक घोटाला का यहाँ पर्दाफाश हुआ है। उसमें जो जांच करने वाले सेबी हैं, वो सेबी के चेयरपर्सन जब इस संदेह के घेरे में आ गए हैं, तो निश्चित रूप पर जो पूरा जांच अडानी के बारे में हुआ था, वो साबित हो गया है कि ये जांच की कोई क्रेडिबिलिटी तो है नहीं। तो अभी सेबी चेयरपर्सन के नाम जब आ गया है, तो पहली बात ये है, ये सरकार की जिम्मेदारी बनती है कि सेबी चेयरपर्सन से तुरंत इस्तीफा लिया जाए। अगर वो स्वयं अपने पद को नहीं छोड़ रहे हैं, इस्तीफा नहीं दे रहे हैं, जो कि देना चाहिए निष्पक्ष जांच के लिए, तो सरकार की जिम्मेदारी है। लेकिन सरकार तो बचाने की उस पर लगे हुए हैं, क्योंकि सरकार का खुद इसमें पूरा हाथ है। इसलिए हम लोगों ने सबने मिलकर ये मांग की है, ये किसी एक पार्टी का नहीं है, ये पूरे देश की डिमांड है, तमाम विपक्षी दलों की ये डिमांड है कि तुरंत अभी एक जेपीसी का गठन किया जाए जो निष्पक्ष जांच हो सके। दूसरी बात, सुप्रीम कोर्ट के अंतर्गत भी ये केस आया था। सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने भी उनको एक तरह का क्लीन चिट दे दिया। तो आज जब ये नए तत्व आए हैं, तो इसके बारे में भी सुप्रीम कोर्ट का कोई टिप्पणी या कोई हस्तक्षेप होगा कि नहीं, ये भी एक सवाल उठता है।
एक बवाल मचा है पूरे मुल्क में, इस पर क्या कहना चाहोगे? मैं
तो पहले राहुल गांधी को मुबारक करता हूं कि उन्हें एक बहुत बड़ा मुद्दा देश के सामने रख दिया है। सेबी में लोगों के पैसे हैं, शेयर मार्केट, और हिंडनबर्ग ने अमेरिका से एक खबर पहुंचाई है कि ये शेयर मार्केट गिरने वाला है और इस पे सेबी की जो चेयरमैन है और उनके खावंद और अडानी जी इसमें मुलविस हैं और इसमें बहुत जल्दी ये गिर जाएगा, इनका पैसा डूब जाएगा। और इसलिए उन्हें गुजारिश की है, जैसे पहले इलेक्शन कमीशन ने, इनसे सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने पहले भी सो मोटो इसको उठाया है, वो गुजारिश करते हैं क्योंकि ये देश का मामला है कि वो सो मोटो इसको उठाएं कि देश के सामने ये बात आए और सरकार इसको क्लियर करे। इसमें भी कोई शक नहीं है। वो कहते हैं कि जो सेबी के चेयरमैन है उनको रिजाइन करना चाहिए। और मैं तो ये भी जानता हूं कि हिंडनबर्ग ने उसको फोन भी किया था कि तुम कब रिजाइन कर रहे हो।
और साहब अब आगे इलेक्शन आने वाला है, तो कैसी तैयारियां, क्या आप जो है?
देखिए, मैं समझता हूं जितनी हमसे तैयारी हो सकती है।
दूसरा, ईडी जानबूझकर राहुल गांधी के पीछे ये सब कर रही है ताकि ध्यान भटकाने का काम करे सेंट्रल।
ऐसा है, कांग्रेस पार्टी आजकल मोदी जी की खिलाफत करते देश की खिलाफत कर रही है। हिंडनबर्ग की रिपोर्ट आई थी ना, सुप्रीम कोर्ट ने जांच की ना, 23-24 रात पूरी हो गई ना, सेबी ने इसी हिंडनबर्ग को नोटिस दिया ना जुलाई में, क्या आप जवाब दीजिए। उनके वेबसाइट पर पूरे से कारण भी हैं कि क्यों भेजा है, तब उन्होंने दूसरी एक रिपोर्ट लगा दी। तो हम क्यों नहीं माने कि कांग्रेस पार्टी हिंडनबर्ग साथ काम करते हैं। पहले लोकसभा चुनाव के पहले लाया, अब चुनाव के बाद आया जब हार गए तब। और हिंडनबर्ग कौन है, कोई दूध के धोए हुए हैं क्या? जॉर्ज सोरोस ने वहाँ पूंजी निवेश किया है, बड़े व्यापारी हैं। जॉर्ज सोरोस एंटी इंडिया है, भारत के लोकतंत्र पर विश्वास नहीं करते। मोदी जी को तो खैर खुलेआम क्या क्या शब्द का प्रयोग करते हैं, लोकतंत्र है, नया सेक्युलरिज्म है। तो जो हिंडनबर्ग एंटी इंडिया का फ्रंट बना हुआ है, उसकी रिपोर्ट को लेकर कांग्रेस पार्टी हल्ला करती है, तो कांग्रेस पार्टी को हम देश में एक्सपोज करेंगे कि जान करके भारत में आर्थिक अराजकता लाने के लिए कांग्रेस पार्टी पड़ी हुई है। ये बहुत गलत है।
आखिरी सवाल है सर, में एक ट्रेनी